One statistic completely blew my mind. Around 90% of Canadians live within about 160 kilometers of the US border. Hey everyone, greetings from Toronto. It's a rainy summer day today. I've been living in the Netherlands for 12 years, and over the past 3 years, I've also spent quite a bit of time here in Canada. The more time I spend in both countries, the more I notice the little differences that make each place unique. So today I thought it would be fun to compare life in Canada and the Netherlands, sharing some interesting facts as well as my own observations. Needless to say, I love both countries. They are both fantastic places to live, but certainly not for everyone. So let's start. Number 1. Canada is enormous. The Netherlands is compact and incredibly efficient. In Canada, driving several hours or even taking a 4 or 5 hour domestic flight is completely normal. In the Netherlands, if you drive for 2 hours in almost any direction, you are probably already in another country. Canada also spans 6 time zones, while the entire European Union only has 3 main time zones. And one statistic completely blew my mind. Around 90% of Canadians live within about 160 kilometers of the US border. That means the vast majority of Canada's huge territory is very sparsely populated, which makes me even more curious to explore those remote regions one day. The Netherlands, on the other hand, is incredibly compact. We have about 18 million people living in just over 41,000 square kilometers, making it one of the most densely populated countries in Europe. Yet, despite that, it rarely feels overwhelming to me. Even around places like Eindhoven, I often found peaceful countryside, forests, and quiet villages. The biggest difference is that, unlike Canada, you're almost never far from the next town or city. Canada has around 42 million people, but spread across almost 10 million square kilometers. That's roughly 238 times larger than the Netherlands, with only a little more than twice the population. One thing I absolutely love about Canada is the amount of nature. Lakes, forests, national parks, it feels endless. Toronto, however, is probably the exception. It feels much more vertical, with condo towers everywhere you look. Personally, after a while, I start missing greenery. That's not to say Toronto doesn't have beautiful parks, you just need to be intentional and know where to go. Meanwhile, even Amsterdam, despite being the capital, is incredibly green and designed with people in mind. Personally, I love the Dutch convenience for everyday life, and Canada's endless nature completely wins my heart. Now let's talk about diversity and multiculturalism. Toronto is often considered one of the most multicultural cities in the world. More than half of its residents were actually born outside Canada, and you can really feel that in everyday life. Before coming here, I always considered Amsterdam to be extremely international, and it is. But the diversity in Toronto is on another level. Of course, this has to do with Canada being a country built through immigration. Also, whatever cuisine you are craving, chances are you will find it here. Walking through the city, you hear dozens of different languages and experience cultures from all over the world. Compared to the Netherlands, I personally noticed much larger Asian communities, for example. The Netherlands is also very international. Around a quarter of the Dutch population has a migration background. And Dutch people are generally very well traveled and speak multiple languages. To me, they are simply different types of diversity. Canada feels more globally diverse, while the Netherlands feels more internationally connected. Neither is better, they are just different. Okay, transportation and urban planning. The Netherlands is built around people. Cycling isn't something people do for exercise. It's simply part of everyday life. Public transport is excellent, cities are walkable, and much of the infrastructure encourages people to live without a car. Canada is much more car-oriented. Downtown Toronto is very walkable, but once you leave the city center, having a car becomes much more practical. That said, Canadians are also very active. There are endless outdoor activities, and I noticed many condo buildings have their own gyms and swimming pools, which is incredibly convenient. For me, the Netherlands stands out when it comes to transportation and urban planning. It's simply one of the easiest countries I've ever experienced to live in without a car. One difference I noticed is that Canada sometimes feels a little more business-oriented, while the Netherlands feels more people-oriented. Perhaps that's partly due to Canada's close influence from the United States. As for cost of living, according to Numbeo, the two countries are actually fairly comparable, although the Netherlands generally comes out a bit more expensive depending on the city. Personally, though, alcohol felt noticeably more expensive here in Canada, and then there is the tipping culture, but that's probably a topic for another video. So once you add tax and the tip, it adds up pretty quickly. One fun fact I learned is that Canada has one of the highest rates of tertiary education in the world, with around 63% of adults aged 25 to 64 holding a post-secondary qualification. The Netherlands is also highly educated, and what always impresses me is how many people speak excellent English and often one or two additional languages. Finally, as someone pursuing financial independence, I also noticed that Canada offers several tax advantage investments accounts, which I find really attractive. On the other hand, the Netherlands offers excellent work protections, pensions, and work-life balance. Again, they are simply different systems with different priorities, and I can definitely see the advantages of both. One thing that constantly confuses me is Canada's measurement system. Officially, Canada uses the metric system, but in reality it feels like a mix of metric and imperial. At the gym, the weights are in pounds. People tell me their height in feet and inches. Weather is always in Celsius, I think. Driving distances are in kilometers. And in supermarkets, I sometimes see vegetables priced in kilograms and other times in pounds, so I'm a bit confused. If you are Canadian watching this, are you equally comfortable using both systems? Please let me know in the comments because I'm still trying to figure it out. I guess it's just a hybrid system. Another thing that surprised me is how friendly Canadians are. People love making small talk. Sometimes I will get into an elevator and find myself avoiding eye contact, only for someone to start a small conversation anyway. They love their small talk. Dutch people are friendly too, but they are generally much more direct. Canadians often soften what they mean, while Dutch people usually tell you exactly what they are thinking. Neither approach is right or wrong, it just takes some getting used to. One experience that really surprised me happened at a Greek festival here. I met someone in a friend group for the very first time, and the first question they asked was, "So, what do you do?" I actually froze for a second and replied, "You mean like for work?" It caught me off guard because we weren't at a networking event. We were simply enjoying a festival and I'm visiting from Europe. So is that the first question you're gonna ask me? In the Netherlands, I don't experience that nearly as often outside professional settings. Alright, so the more I travel, the more I realize there is no perfect country. That said, Canada and the Netherlands are both fantastic places to live, but they each optimize for different things. Personally, I don't think one is better than the other, and that's exactly what makes traveling so fascinating. As for me, I'm super happy living in the Netherlands. So now I'm curious, if you visited either country, what surprised you the most? And if you had to choose, which one would you rather live in? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.